Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. Rangers snap a 4-game losing skid with a 3-2 win against the St. Louis Blues, which is only their second home win of the season, the other one being against the Nashville Predators. So not exactly the greatest competition with the 2 wins at home, but the Rangers will take it any way they can get it. It was a much-needed win. It gets them back to NHL 500 at 11-11-2. So still not a very good record, still not a very good home record at 2-7-1, but coming off of a really, really bad road trip, they found a way to get it done. And a game like this certainly doesn't change my opinion about them. And it's, they're going to have to really beat tougher competition, and they have to see a lot more. I still think that this is a team that, isn't a playoff team. It doesn't mean they may not come close, and it's a very, very long season, and they do play a pretty sound defensive game. St. Louis doesn't have a whole lot of firepower themselves, so you got to take it for what it is. It'd be easy for me to kind of just move on through it, but hey, you got to be fair. They do get the win. They played better. They didn't play quite as recklessly. It got a little bit too interesting at the end, where the Rangers looked like maybe they were going to win somewhat handily, but it was a close game. I mean, the Rangers didn't score their first goal until midway through the second period. Give them credit for scoring a couple of goals in the third, which has been, which at times has been a problem. Talked about, some of their third period struggles lately, and, tie games going into the third. Rangers didn't draw a single power play, so nothing to talk about there. Penalty kill does the job, actually, and goes 3 for 3 success rate wise. Igor Shesterkin was fine, not overly tested, makes 19 saves on 21 shots. Another game where the Rangers shot count is low, 20 shots on goal. Low event hockey, which you'd expect between the Blues and the Rangers. And the Blues have been playing well lately. And I think in some ways that helped the Rangers. Like I always say, I think you'd still rather play a team that has won than has lost. And St. Louis is coming off a win against the Islanders. Rangers had a 4-game losing streak. You add that all up, and this was a game like if the Rangers lost, this episode would have been, I think, a lot more where there's just more emotion to it, because it continues the losing streak. It was one of the few games that the Rangers, where they were a favorite, and there's still injuries for the Rangers. Will Borgen is out. Technically, he's retroactively placed on IR. JT Miller misses his second straight game. So as far as the Rangers roster goes, the most minor one, or maybe it won't turn out to be minor, but Jonathan Quick got hurt at the end of that game against the Mammoth. And so Dylan Garand, he was recalled from Hartford to be the backup for Shesterkin. Ideally, he won't, come into any action here. I suppose the best chance he would have, and legitimately so, is if Quick is somehow still hurt for the back-to-back set Friday, Saturday. Now, Igor could just go in both of them, but maybe that'd be one scenario where if that's the one combination. But if that doesn't happen, then I wouldn't expect to see Garand start games, but he was the backup. Scott Morrow sent down, kind of figured that might happen. He didn't really look so good last game, and, we'll probably see him again, but he goes back to Hartford. And it's then at that point, with Borgen still out, it would be Vakanainen coming back to the lineup with Matthew Robertson as a third pair. It's not a great third pair. Both left-handed shots. That's still, again, it's kind of a pick your poison between Vakanainen and Robertson. It really is. I'm not gonna, go to bat for either of the, it's both of them aren't great. Ideally, they wouldn't be in your lineup, but they are. And then as far as the forwards go, Brett Berard is called up and makes his season debut for the Rangers. Didn't play a whole lot in this game, only 9 minutes and 21 seconds, which I guess isn't terribly low. And he provided some bit of energy, but he takes a bad 4-minute high sticking penalty in the third period that kind of it gave St. Louis a chance. Even though St. Louis didn't score on the power play, I think it did kind of catapult them towards the goal. They did score a little bit. It kind of just changed momentum, as the Rangers were looking pretty solid up 3-1. So that is something that you can't discount. But Berard, and he was called up around this time last year, ironically, also against St. Louis. But look, I'm very much fine with it. I think Berard, he brings a different element to the table. He's far from the perfect player, and we'll see what his NHL future is, but he is up. And Juuso Parssinen was actually out the scratch. Again, it shows you what the team thinks about Parssinen, with things like that, where, you know, they'll basically have someone from Hartford come up and take that spot. And I'm, again, totally for that. But again, it just, there's certain signs and signals where you can tell where a player stands within the thoughts of the team. And that one's kind of clear there, which kind of begs the question as to why, because, Parssinen was given a 2-year deal, I think, at $1.5 million per year. It's just strange. Like with his role, like he should be probably getting paid less than that, and probably not for 2 years. But again, that's such an irrelevant conversation right now. As far as the lines go, little bit of tweaks where it would be Zibanejad centering Cooley and Lafrenière, Trocheck centering Panarin and Brodzinski, Laba centering Sherry and Berard, and then Carrick centering Edstrom and Radish. And that was the one that probably stayed the same. The other three had something different to it. Maybe not drastically, but a little bit, I think, across the board, because they broke up Panarin, Trocheck, Lafrenière, and they throw Brodzinski on there. And Brodzinski, again, he continues to contribute. Like, look, it's not ideal. It's not what you want at all, but like, he is someone that he's very versatile. Johnny Brodzinski is like someone that really, has become someone who he's an NHL player. Like, he went from someone that was really mostly in the AHL, now the last 3 or so years, probably, he finds his way into the lineup, and it's probably more than he should, but he doesn't look like lost out there out of place, right? He is that perfect sort of 13th forward in a way. But yeah, let's talk about this one. Again, not like a whole lot to discuss here. I'm going to be honest. Like, there's one player I want to call out positively, even though we'd get into it anyway, and it's Vladislav Gavrikov. He really has been a very good signing. I so wish that the Rangers could have gotten him. Like, if they could have had him on their team a few years ago when they really were making runs, at maybe a cup, you think 2022, 2024, you somehow throw Gavrikov in there. And to be fair, hey, replace, Keandre Miller, whoever you want to choose, right? That's fair, right? It's not just fair. Okay, let's just throw Gavrikov on there and not take anyone off. But that would have been a real good guy to have. And, him and Adam Fox, like that pairing on a Ranger team that I don't think is all that great, that is a strong spot. Gavrikov Fox has to be one of the better pairs in the National Hockey League. And Adam Fox, it'd be easy to just like, okay, let's group him in with all the other high-priced disappointments. I don't think that would be totally fair. I think Adam Fox has actually had a pretty good season. Has he had better seasons in the past? Sure. But is this a lot better than last year? Yes. And I think Gavrikov probably has a lot to do with that as well. Like, it's a shame that around them there just is not a whole lot. But Gavrikov is even producing offense with 2 assists in this game, which we'll discuss. And for Gavrikov, 10 points in 24 games on a +7. Like again, on a Ranger team that has had their struggles, that is not nothing. Again, he has really, I think you could definitely argue that Vladislav Gavrikov has maybe been the most consistent player on this entire Ranger club. Like, I don't think that's like a stretch to say that. So first period, not a whole lot going on. Very low event hockey. I would say Rangers outshot the Blues 9-5. I would say that the Rangers had more of the control territorial-wise, but weren't getting great chances. Where the Blues, the few chances they got were high quality. There was a Braden Shen breakaway that Igor Shesterkin made a stop on, but the Blues are the ones that break the ice. At 17:36, so another late period goal against, it's Dylan Holloway with his 6th goal of the season, assisted by Broberg and Parayko. And the 4th line for the Rangers was on at this point, as well as Vakanainen and Robertson. So not ideal as far as who was on. Blues passing it around, and Holloway takes a nice snapshot that goes past Shesterkin high glove side. Now, there's credit given to Holloway, but Igor has been beaten there a lot. That is a spot that Igor has been targeted. There's just no question. It's that glove side high. He's getting beat there. And I think that's a theme across the NHL, but really with Shesterkin specifically, it's something that he really needs to work on. I wouldn't call it a bad goal, but I'd call it one that, again, there's a game plan there and there's a scouting report and it's being executed. So St. Louis takes the 1-0 lead. We go to the second period and I felt like it was a lot of the same. St. Louis, Rangers weren't getting a whole lot going. However, they stay patient. The good thing with the Rangers in this game, they didn't make the mistakes. They didn't try to chase the game. It's a boring kind of ugly type style of hockey, but the only chance the Rangers have of winning games is truly trying to stick to the system and really playing a total north-south grinded out smart defensive game. And like I said, the problem with this team is they're not really constructed and built that way personnel-wise to totally do that. But we've seen it work when they've tried to do that. And, Vincent Trocheck ties it up. His fourth goal of the season, assisted by Brodzinski and Fox at 10:06 to the second period. It's just a great play by Fox, a heady play to kind of show some patience at his own blue line, find Brodzinski up the middle. Brodzinski makes a nice backhand pass to Trocheck, and he buries it past his Hofer. And Hofer, who is the backup goalie for the Blues, Jordan Binnington, the starter, had the night off. And Hofer had some success last year versus the Rangers. So it's not as if he's done well, against them. But, Rangers in some ways probably still catch a little bit of a break. Not that Jordan Binnington's had a great season, but Binnington played pretty well against the Islanders. He's capable of big-time performances. But, yeah, again, Fox just showing that patience. Nice little play by Brodzinski, and Trocheck finishes it off to tie it up at 1. Soon thereafter, Braden Schneider would high stick Jake Neighbors for a 2-minute penalty, but the Rangers were able to call it off. St. Louis got some chances. Blues power play, it was dangerous, but the Rangers were able to keep them off the board, and it's 1-1 going to the third. And that's been a thing. We've seen a lot of, and really most Ranger games, they've been close, and then the Rangers really ended up on the wrong side of them for the most part. But another tie game going to the third, but this one, very importantly, the Rangers right away are able to take the lead. 40 seconds in, and it's Alexis Lafrenière, who had not scored in a while, gets his 5th goal of the season, assisted by Gavrikov and Cooley. So it's a play where, they're able to keep it in the zone. Cooley gets it back to Gavrikov. A very innocent shot by Gavrikov from the point, but those things work because Alexis Lafrenière is able to deflect the shot, and it goes past Hofer for a 2-1 Ranger lead. So that was important because who knows with the Rangers? If that game stays 1-1 and it goes deeper in the third, we've seen how that story plays out. So can't discount the importance of how early it was in the period. And Lafrenière had a pretty good game. Of course he's been a disappointment, no doubt about that. But, I thought in this game, even beyond the goal, showed a little more jump, was a little more active, and he is able to give the Rangers a 2-1 lead. Then at 8:56, the Rangers score a big insurance goal, and it's Adam Edstrom scoring his 2nd goal of the season. It's actually his 2nd goal in 3 games, assisted again by Gavrikov and Fox. So 2 assists each for Gavrikov and Fox. And it was a really nice play by Gavrikov to jump into the play. He ends up behind the net and makes a nice backhand pass to Adam Edstrom in front, who scores. So again, Edstrom, nice to see him getting some production. And we know that he's capable of that a little bit. He's not a total stiff, but he was not looking good for the majority of this season. But Edstrom, before he got hurt last year on a line with Carrick and Rempe primarily, really was an effective player. And give a ton of credit to Gavrikov for showing some offensive instincts, making a nice pass, and Edstrom is able to seal the deal and give the Rangers a 3-1 lead. So they have a 3-1 lead, looking pretty comfortable, but then Brett Berard at 14:09, double minor for high sticking Jake Neighbors. So a rough night for Neighbors, being on the receiving end of a couple of high sticks. But even though St. Louis had a lot of opportunities, they are unable to score on their 4-minute power play. And after it's over, there's not a whole lot of time left. However, on the 6-on-5 at 18:45, Braden Schenn scores his 4th goal of the season, assisted by former Ranger Pavel Buchnevich, and Justin Falk gets the other assist. So Schenn takes, Buchnevich, it's off of a lost face-off by Zibanejad, and it was a shot by Buchnevich from the corner to flex off of Schenn and in. So kind of a weird goal, but it cuts the lead to 1. So it's a 3-2 game, but then the Rangers do a fairly good job of, limiting the Blues' chances. Really didn't have a great look as far as, once they were down 1 and they pulled the goalie. They're actually, with 3 seconds left, in a neutral zone faceoff situation. Trocheck high sticks Brayden Shen, which, obviously now the Rangers really could have won this easily. Instead, they kept on making it a lot closer than it needed to be, where now there's a faceoff in the Rangers zone. Blues actually win it back cleanly, but it goes past the defenseman and out of the zone, and the Rangers win the game 3-2. So, like I said, you get a couple of assists each for Gavrikov and Fox, and goals for Trocheck, Lafrenière, and Edstrom. And Igor Shesterkin gets the win. So you never know, right? I mean, I don't really believe in this Ranger team, but you've seen stranger things before, where just even in the course of this stretch, right? I'm not even talking about the long haul, where like a win that seemed not all that, like, I don't know if the word's important, but like not like an overly impressive win could maybe kind of get the ball rolling a little bit. I've seen it, but here's the thing. The next game is at Carolina. You just can't love those odds. In the fact that Carolina, and I'm not sure where they are injury-wise, they got to be more healthy than they were last time the Rangers faced them. Let me actually just kind of give that a quick look right now. But they're coming off of a tough loss to Buffalo. And it's one of those things I don't like. So a 4-1 loss to Buffalo. This game is now going to be in Carolina. But it looks to me as if, Jacob Slavin's still out, it looks like, based on at least the fact that he was out last game. Apologies for not having more information. K'Andre Miller is back, though, and he played actually a lot of minutes. He played the most by far. So it'll be K'Andre Miller's first game against the Rangers. It's not quite the same that it won't be an MSG, but still. But the Carolina defense is certainly a little bit more healthy than it was. Slavin's a big loss if he is out again. And my hunch would be that he probably is out again. Jordan Staal was actually out as well. So that'd be a pretty significant one, too. So they clearly are dealing with some pretty significant injuries. But Carolina's a really good team. Rangers have had major struggles against them in the regular season and the last couple of years. And so that would be, even if it's ugly, that's one of those wins that I could get excited about. Like, that would be something that maybe you build off of. Because to me, this probably is just an outlier one-off win against St. Louis. And so now we'll see. It'll be 3 games in a 4-day stretch. At Carolina, Thanksgiving Eve. And then on Black Friday, a matinee game at Boston. And then a Saturday MSG matinee game the next day against the Lightning. So it's a pretty tough stretch. And I think it'll be a real good litmus test to see where this team is right now. Because obviously, like I said, this St. Louis game prevented things for me to going fully off the rails. If they lost this game, I really think that it could have been something that could have kept on going. Maybe they've stopped the bleeding. In a game they absolutely needed to win. Wasn't really pretty, but give them credit, nonetheless, for ending the 4-game skid that they were on. So, Rangers win, final score 3-2 against the St. Louis Blues. And next up, they will head to Carolina to take on the Hurricanes on Thanksgiving Eve.